Good day, everybody. Wolf Driver coming at you live. This is the second time today because for some reason some of our some of our communications got messed up. It was actually a software error, and this is live, so that happens on a live broadcast. Please understand. So, introduction here. I'm the Wolf Driver. In case you don't notice, in case you don't know who I am, I have pioneered, I've been running dogs for almost 30 years. When I say running dogs, mushing dogs, having huskies be part of my life, and doing everything you can imagine with huskies, especially what a husky would find instinctual to it, like prey, their prey drive, their running capacity, pulling capacity, everything of the sort. And I've had a Malamute also, or a Malamute Husky mix. By the way, if you see me go into two cameras, I've got a bunch of different social media streams so everybody can catch up on what I'm doing and what I'm talking about here. So today, in honor of Election Day in the USA, I'm wearing what I call my Abraham Lincoln hat. Today, at least, it's called that. So I'm famous for wearing cameras everywhere. I put them all over my body, relatively speaking. And lately, I've been wearing them on my head, and I need a little bit because I'm wearing 360 cameras. So I need a little bit stronger of a camera, of a helmet, more like a helmet, I should say. And I wear snowboarding kind of helmets in the winter because I go out in the Arctic temperatures with the dogs. We are in Maryland, so we don't always have Arctic temperatures, but on the occasion we get them, it's nicer for the dogs. But even in the cold weather, I'll wear like a snowboarding helmet, which is plenty sturdy enough to mount the camera to. A 360's got some weight to it. During the warmer times, I consider myself a husky too, not just in my gut, but the way I register the temperature. So I don't like my ears covered when it's warm, when it's 50 degrees, whatever. So during the fall, a lot of times, and of course the spring and summer, you'll see me in this helmet because it can support the weight of the 360 camera better than a baseball cap. And I don't care, I'm doing it for the dogs and for my memory. So if I look a little funkadelic, that's the way the Wolf Driver rolls. Playing behind me, and it did stop, and I apologize for that because we had some technical difficulties, is me in the forest. I believe this was Tuscaro National Forest in Pennsylvania. Oh, this was Shade Mountain Road, actually. I believe in Virginia. So I have to look it up. But this is a previous generation of Huskies. One of the Huskies, Lola, is here as a younger dog now. She's about 6 or 7. She's about 7. And we're on what I call the Wolf Driver's ATV, stand-up ATV 4x4. So it's a 4x4x4. It's got 4 motors, one in each hub, 4-wheel drive, and it's got 4 dogs. So it's the ultimate. It's probably more versatile than more ATVs. I know people out there with ATVs like, no way. I mean, this thing is unbelievable. And because of its structure, the way it's structured, its footprint, etc., we can make it, and because it's electric, so electric has a lot of torque, we can make it up incredible grades, hills, mountains, etc. And of course, there I am there with all 4 dogs there. The ability to, it's not made for the dogs, but Wolf Driver, I work with a team of pros that what they do from welding to electric to, I'm the dog guy, I'm the pro on that, to everything in between. And we kind of engineered this for the dogs. Now, the dogs with their spatial relations, how they relate to tight spaces. I mean, you see them in agility. They're amazing because they can get through a tight space and not touch their hairs. So working next to the wheel is not a problem. I know some dogs are, and rightfully so, intimidated by it, but it doesn't mean they can't do it. It's more of sometimes the sound of the wheel, the spinning of the wheel. But once they learn it, and they're comfortable with it. I mean, I've had dogs run that their hair kind of gets blown by the wheel. So what you see here is all from our training and all from what I do. And we're, like I said, in the mountains here, we're climbing mountain roads. We're doing incredible stuff. So the dogs now, the generation I have now, remember, I've been doing this for close to 30, I think it is 30 years now, very close, 30 years. And I've had multiple generations of Huskies, and these dogs have handled this like it was second nature, all of it. And again, that's what I'm all about. Instinctual, familiar exercise, specific breed exercise, etc. And almost all dogs from at any life stage and almost all breeds can do what I'm doing in some capacity. So I even have my toy breed Chinese Crested, who's all of 19 pounds, doing what I pioneered here, dog motorsports. So that's that's it in a nutshell. There's so much. People say, well, why do you have like 20 websites? Because it's too much to put all in one website, all my experiences and everything I've invented, pioneered, all the dogs I've worked with, people I've worked with, organizations I've worked with to help raise awareness and raise monies for shelters and rescues, etc. So that's why it's spread out on a bunch of different websites, because people ask me questions and I want to answer as accurately as possible, because of course there's many mushers out there, many people that run dogs, and a lot of them are incredible. And a lot of them know more than me about that specific running the dogs, how they do it, mushing them. But I'm doing this on a recreation level, and I've done things none of them have ever done. And I'm dealing with a small team, like most people that are in modern day worlds. It's hard to have a big sled dog team. So I've got 4 dogs. A lot of people that are into what I'm doing have 1 or 2 dogs. You can have as few as you have. You don't need more than 1, because it's electric. So the dog doesn't have to pull, and that's what makes it possible for all dogs. And when I say all life stages, what I'm saying is even puppies. You don't ever want a puppy pulling. Usually you don't want any dogs until their growth plates have met doing any kind of rigorous exercise, because it can stunt their growth and create a real health problems along those lines. But after their growth plates have met, usually around 2 years old for huskies, a veterinarian can tell you, they take x-rays if you're concerned, and then they can do it. But that doesn't preclude them from exercising. So with dog motorsports, they can run with the bike. You don't let them pull it, and you don't give them too much running, but just enough to get familiar with it and to get their puppy energy focused in the right direction. So, and for senior dogs in their golden years, they can do this as much or as limited as they want. Again, it can be nothing more than a glorified walk, because the motor's doing all the walk and they can just trot along with it. But it becomes an adventurous exercise for them, because you can take them anywhere to do it. You don't have to worry about the terrain, and you can, even when they're older, they can go to these trails and parks. You don't know really what's on the other side, but you know you've got the motor if the trail's a little too much resistance for them, whatever, to assist them. So again, there's more on that, my Dog Motorsports website. You can see us here. Now, the truck in the background, that's actually my Ford Excursion, six-door Ford Excursion, custom built for what I do. And we have a trailer with it, because we carry a lot of equipment, especially when we were adventuring in the mountains, because we never know if we're going to get caught there, if we'd have to camp out, whatever. But he's following me. That's my wingman, I call him. He always follows me when we're on roads, when the truck can go there, because again, we don't know what's going to happen. If the dog didn't want to run anymore for some reason, dog can go up, injury, whatever, which really virtually never happens, but we're prepared for it. Thank God, knock on wood. I think this is wood. And the dog can go right up there, or we can, if we had to pack up for some reason, if a rock slide occurred, hopefully before we got there, but the road was closed, we hop into the truck, turn the truck around, whatever we got to do. And sometimes it's a little tedious too, because you're on a mountainside. You don't always have the room, so we have to drop the trailer, make the truck not as long, etc. So there's tons of logistics. And you'll see the guy in front of me, that's my point man. And he will actually be in front guiding us, letting me know, hey, there's a tree down. He'll be filming me also. By the way, anybody watching this can always comment. I don't care if you have concerns. I rightfully would love to address them so everyone can learn, because again, this is not something you're going to see anywhere else. I'm the only one doing it in the capacity that I do it. And if you have comments, if you love what I'm doing, if you want to learn more, if you want to ask a specific question to work with your dog about it, I'm here for that. And if you want to tell me off, I'm here for that too. A lot of times people will see what I do and think, they'll say, oh my gosh, it's so cruel. They don't understand anything behind it. But what I'm trying to do by spreading the word here, by educating, is give people ideas to think outside of the box. Because I've said this a million times and I'll say it again. People will get these breeds, especially a husky, for their striking looks. And when that wears off, they get out of that puppy stage, or they just, become their husky self. The newness of the situation wears off, and they start digging out of the yard. They start pulling your shoulder out of the socket as you try to walk them. They won't eat their food. They won't stop talking, whining, barking, complaining, whatever you want to call it. That's when they get all too often surrendered and abandoned and wind up as shelters and rescues, and sometimes even worse. So I'm here to give you ideas, to let everybody know there's other ways to do it. You don't need to be a full-time musher. You don't even have to know anything of what a musher knows to take your dog out on a bike ride. So, and I say the story and I'll say it again. I say it a lot, but my first dog I got, his name was Czar, not Zorro, Czar. I had another dog named Zorro more recently, but that's already a few years ago. But my first dog that got me into this was, I suffered that scenario, but I would never give up on him. I got him, and he was such a cute puppy. And all of a sudden, that puppy stage started wearing off, and he was climbing the walls in the house. And I'm like, what can I do? Found out about the bike attachment, got him on the bike, took him around the block, and he was a different dog. Literally, we got home and he was looking asleep. And I'm like, what's the matter with you? I'm like, did I do something to him? I mean, he looked fine. We went slow. I'm like, did I hurt him? God forbid. And, a few hours later, he was up and starting to be his husky self. And I'm like, oh, I guess I tired him out. Maybe, just maybe, a tired dog is a good dog. Maybe that agreed with him. And we started doing that. And be careful what you wish for, because around the block became a mile, and a mile becomes 2 miles. And then they get into more shape. But then they start getting the real working mentality. They start focusing their energies and putting it's psychological and physical. So they start putting that in the right direction, and they start thinking differently. And then they become trainable. So, all this good stuff comes out of them being able to release their energies, what they need to do to be stimulated, etc. So I'm just going to read a couple comments, take a break here for a second, and read a couple comments that are out there. Again, please feel free, if you just want to shout out whatever you'd like to say to me, go for it. And I'm going to see here. So I have to try to blow the screen up a little bit, so I can't read it.
Actually, I got it right down on the screen for you.
Okay. Okay. Yep. Oh, at the bottom. Oh, yeah. So I call, Triple Whopper. I call you the Husky Whisperer. You're really good with dogs. Tells you have a good soul. God bless you. Stay safe, sir. Thank you so much, Triple Whopper. I really appreciate that. And believe it or not, people have said that before. So, and I love it. And I'm not tooting my own horn here, but I actually have a website called huskywhisperer.com, because I've done so many things with Huskies that people didn't think were possible, because once you get them in the right frame of mind, they're just like another dog, but you have to maintain that with them. But once you desensitize them and get them living the proper life, they become real manageable. They're like, wow, this is like any other dog. So it's pretty interesting. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. So we've got another comment here from the Warrior. God bless America. Yes. Hey, I love it. And just speaking of that real quickly, I have a website called Presidential Pet Museum, and it's not political at all. It's about all the presidents from George Washington to Joe Biden, the current president, and it tells about all their pets and how the impact of pets have been, or we call them the first pets. And back in the day, they were really working pets, like the horses. They weren't really pets. They were how they got around. So I'm talking George Washington time. So it's really interesting. I'm a patriotic type of guy. Presidentialpetmuseum.com. You will be floored. Lots of good stuff. So our next one is from Fam Pajati. Yo, what's up? Hey, shout out to you. What's up? Thanks so much for taking the time to comment on here. I appreciate that. Keep the comments coming. Michelle Fury, good morning to you. And yes, we just hit noon where I'm at on the East Coast. It's just morning's just ended. It's 12:10. I'm in the Maryland region. I'm actually in Pennsylvania today, but we're on the East Coast of the USA. And Michelle says she has a 3-legged 16-year-old border collie. How wonderful. And she's her heart, she says. And it's so wonderful. I love hearing the stories. And she has a pink wheelchair. That's awesome. Our pets, our dogs are our children. And I grew up loving pets. And I couldn't have dogs as a child because I had 4 other siblings and my parents had enough with them and they didn't want to let me have it because they thought I wouldn't take care of a dog or a cat. Eventually I got a cat, but I had fish and I had lizards, reptiles. I was big into that. So, I just love all animals. I can't even hurt a spider. So I always if I have a spider in the home, I take it outside to release it because everything is part of our ecosystem and part of our world. So I respect all human life, but I love when everybody loves their pets and their dogs and just cares for them so much. Thanks so much for saying that and taking the time, Michelle. Truly appreciate that. Our next comment is from Johnny Dobbs. Johnny Dobbs. Okay, so that's that. I don't want to, and I don't want to get into anything political here. I just want to tell everybody exercise wherever you are, but in the United States right today is election day, so exercise your right to vote. And we don't get political, and that's why we love our dogs because they don't get political either. So they just want to live with their family and be as happy as can be, and that's what WoofDriver's all about. Okay, so we're Johnny Dobbs has 4 dogs. So cool. And you could tell me what kind of dogs they are because Husky, awesome, Johnny. Yep. So my website might be perfect for you. Again, I'm eccentric, I'm extreme. You don't have to do what I'm doing. I started out with just a regular upright bike, 1 dog on the side. You can run 4 dogs on a regular upright bike using springers. So, and depending on the dogs, you could have 1 springer on each side and run 2 on each side. Lots of ways to do it up. It's dogmotorsports.com, and I'm answering any questions about it. Seeing if there's any more here that we're going, or we got them all. And a terrier, cool. And then Aussie. So you got quite the mix, Johnny. You got quite the mix. Just so you know, if you go to alldogmush, ALLDOGMUSH.com, you'll see my Husky sled dog team at the time, 4 Huskies, with my Chinese Crested, who's a toy breed 19-pounder. So she's a small dog. She's running on one of my similar to what you see me on here, but a more of a roadworthy scooter, more of a lightweight scooter. So she's running with them. I trained her, and it's just the cutest, coolest thing you'll ever see. I think we got 8 cats. Wow. So I think we covered most of the questions and comments here now. So I'll continue on. I wanted to talk about yesterday's adventure. So if you follow me, and I encourage everyone out there to follow WoofDriver on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, or X now, and let me see, Instagram, TikTok, etc. Because I adventure with my dogs, and I've been doing this. I've been adventuring going out of state. I travel the East Coast of the USA. I call it WoofDriver on Tour for almost 15 years now, and I've been running dogs again for 30 years. So we travel all over. To some of the most remote mountain areas that you can get along the East Coast, to cities. We've run Washington, D.C., the National Mall, and we do it once to twice a week. And it's crazy. It's practically, it's got a lot of resources. My wife says, you don't need to go as far to do this, but I do it because it costs some money, and it takes a village. It takes a bunch of people to go with me and ensure all the safety of all the equipment, the dogs most importantly, but equipment and ourselves and everything else going on. But it's really fascinating to watch, and I hope I can do it forever because it's just the excitement of the dogs. When you see a smile on their face, that's worth all the money in the world and everything to me. So I want people to realize that's why I do it. So this sense of adventure, this sense of teamwork that we get, because we get to a lot of predicaments that the dogs need to really cooperate in some capacity. They don't need to necessarily pull their weight because, again, everything's electric, but they need to be trained enough and patient enough and understand the situation so they can be part of the resolution. And you'll see that throughout my videos. In fact, I've got a series called Trail Adversity, and it's just been over the years of some really adverse situations that we've come across and we've done. So I want you to understand that. And when I talk about my trips, I'm going to talk about what we did yesterday because it's the freshest one in my mind. I mean, I've forgotten so many of these trips when I go on YouTube, especially, and I start looking at them, I'm like, whoa, what? I can't believe I did this. And it's like I've got a really good memory. So it's like the match lights in my head. I'm like, I remember this exact date, what I did, what dogs were there, what we ate for dinner, how we managed it. Incredible. And some of them I'll mention, we've never, and knock on wood a million times, had any dog injuries doing these Wolf Driver on Tour adventures where we travel. So it's truly incredible. All my crew, my safety measures, and everything I've designed has been masterful in that regards. Yesterday, we were in Pennsylvania on the Lackawanna River Heritage Trail. And I encourage you, I posted lately, the past year, maybe a little more, I've been posting every video when we arrive to the trail. So I'll show you usually the time, the distance that it took to get the distance from our home base in Maryland, the current weather conditions, because people will look at me and say, well, it's really too hot to be running the dogs. And again, dog motorsports, they don't have to run, so they don't have to pull at all. It just becomes nothing more than a glorified walk. There are times when it is too hot to even take your dog outside. Obviously, we're not going to go then. Where the ability to travel lets us go into the mountains, lets us head up north to cooler temperatures when it's 90 degrees back home in Maryland. So we try to find cooler places, and we will travel far. I mean, we've gone as far as in Massachusetts, the Cape Cod Rail Trail, and that was an adventure in itself. So of recent, we went yesterday, like I'm talking to now, right now with the weather changing, you have to be careful still because you get some pockets of warm air and humidity. Depending, it can change from day to day. I mean, there can be a disparity of like 15 degrees cooler from yesterday to today. So I do a lot of weather research to see what the temperatures are going to be when the day we want to go, what the trail conditions, the best that we can find out are going to be. Weather's usually easier to find out than trail conditions because it's not like they're roadways. And so you don't have Google Maps and Apple Maps reporting all the conditions 24/7. It's, reported, by the way, there was a tree down last week when I was on the trail. Was that tree still down? Who knows? It just depends on the trail maintenance. So this time of year, though, we don't have to go as far north usually. We don't have to go as high in the mountains usually, but to look for cooler weather because it's pretty cool in the morning and pretty cool when the sun's not out in the evening. And now we just started where we're day clocks fall back. I guess we lost an hour, so it's getting darker earlier too. So yesterday we went to the Lackawanna River Heritage Trail. It's in Pennsylvania, about 4 hours from our home base. And if you go on social media, you'll see I posted our arrival video, what I was talking about, and pretty interesting trail. I would not do it again, and I'm not trying to diss that trail. It's terrible in the sense that it was so chopped up. There was really no direction. Go here for the trail, go here. Parking lots would show up and there would be a nice little access, but you wouldn't know there was a parking lot there to go there. So you start following the access and we wind up in a parking lot. We got to do a U-turn. You try that in an electric dog sled on wheels. It happens. It's made to do that, but dogs got to be trained. Sometimes the areas are tight and it's a little harder to turn. So then we got off the trail somehow because, again, it was so poorly mismarked or not marked at all in some areas. And we found ourselves almost on a ridge, I'm going to call it, what seem to be a levee or for water management in some capacity. We're riding on two pretty big hillsides, and we're in grass. It's some sort of trail. For the life of me, in some places it said it was part of the Lackawanna Trail we were on, and in some places it was just even a couple different trail names. So they might meander, other trails might meander through them. We ran into some areas that were not well groomed at all. And again, the electric dog sled on wheels made it possible. So when I say not well groomed, the grass was taller. There was dirt that hadn't been leveled out, so there were ruts. And without the motor, the dogs certainly, my dogs are pretty much prime age to be doing this. So even four of them were the everything assembled. So 4 dogs, 50-pound dogs, I'm figuring, they're all roughly 50 pounds. That's about 600 pounds of pulling capacity they have. Remember, that's on level land. You start adding a hill to it. You start adding grass as a resistance or dirt. It becomes harder and harder. So there's no way in some of these trail conditions that they were able to pull me. So I was using a lot of motor yesterday, which means they weren't getting as engaging of a workout. So I have to keep that in mind. But I thought this was going to be an all asphalt trail, sadly mistaken, because again, that's another bone of contention. A lot of people say, well, you can't run them on asphalt. I've been doing it for years. And I talk about it on paulaware.com. So, and the wheels roll easier and they can actually run easier on asphalt. You have to watch their paws, their pads, etc. And I address that issue. But just so you know, this trail wasn't like that. So the electric motor was key yesterday, and that's what kept us going for roughly 9 miles we got in. Some areas were paved. There was so much construction going on. There were so many not well thought out road crossings. I mean, just terrible. There was one that I couldn't even get across the street. It was like blocked off in one place for construction with no flagman. Just it was construction to the road. And the other part was it was like a 5-6 way intersection. It was just cars coming from everywhere. Traffic was building up. I mean, I'm talking all kinds of traffic, from 18-wheelers to cars. So somebody had their pit bulls halfway out the car. They were coming past us, and I'm like, are these dogs going to come out? I mean, it was just pandemonium. And again, that's why I have a team. So I had to call in back for reinforcements. I had a call for backup, which is my wingman. He's in my van. He's monitoring us through GPS communications, and he sees where we're at. Also, we use satellite phones when we're off the grid, relatively speaking. And I told him, hey, can you meet us at this parking lot? We can't get across the street, and the trail continues on the other side. And he met us, and he was able to slow traffic down enough that I jumped in front of him while my point man, my co-pilot on the bike, he stopped traffic for a second on the other side, and I was able to get across the street quickly as possible with the dogs and then pull to the other side, which was another street I had to cross. Now, usually when we see police, they'll stop traffic for us, especially at this, I don't know, terrible intersection. That would have been, I really needed someone to stop traffic, but with the help of my co-pilot and my wingman, I was able to do it. The biggest thing that could happen on this situation, I mean, God forbid, my guys would have gotten hit and run over before they got to us. So we were safe, but I've been in situations like this where the dog all of a sudden has to go to the bathroom right in the middle of the street, and the cars are waiting for you, and you're sweating bullets because you're like, I don't want them to go. I don't want them to go. That's happened too before. So you have to take everything into consideration. And you can't always just think the dog's going to jet across the street. That's why if we had an opening, we weren't going to jump on that opening with the layout of this intersection. We were actually going to wait, for backup to make sure that if the dog did stop to go to the bathroom on the street for a second and we had to delay traffic that much more, we were still going to be safe. So this Lackawanna River Heritage Trail had a little bit of that. And then finally, when we started off, it was paved. It was beautiful. But then finally, when we got through about 2.5 hours of this rigorous off-roading, for lack of a better description again, we made it to a part where it looked like it was really well paved, well maintained, and we were going to be good. And then we traveled for a mile or two through that, and we're loving life. Everything's good. And all of a sudden, we get to a major road crossing with no direction where the trail goes. So after lots of research. My wingman was on this. He was in the van. He determined that we would have to ride through basically, I don't know if it was a half a mile or a mile of roads to get to the trail. We'd have to ride on the roads. So this trail shares roads. And then we would get to another part of the trail that was well maintained. But then after another mile, you had another road sharing road deal. So we wrapped it up at 9 miles, and that was good. All this rigorous going through these fields and going through these ridge areas I was talking about was all the dogs working harder. So they didn't get the actual distance that I would have liked them to get because the weather conditions were good for that. But they were getting more of a rigorous workout in the sense that they had to lift their paws up higher to get through these taller grasses, which they love because the grasses all holds the sense of the animals. The taller it is, the more sense they can get a whiff of and say, tell the story to their mind because of their keen noses, of course. But so they were loving it. I mean, usually the more problematic the trail gets, the more the dogs like it because that means we're really getting into the wilderness for them. So I'm going to stop for a second, see if we got any more questions here, and my producer is going to try to put them on the screen if we do. Johnny Dobbs says his parents are really into sledding. That's cool. And again, it's funny because I get a lot of comments from remember on social media you're worldwide, everybody sees you. I get a lot of comments and a lot of them are in a foreign language. I only speak English, so but I want to address everybody, and through people's comments and concerns and whatever they may say, I learn a lot too. So I try to translate them, and usually the social media will translate it for you. And I get a lot of people that tell me what I do is illegal in their country, and I'm like, wow, I can't believe that because I say dog sledding's illegal. And then if you can get past the language barrier, because even when it's translated, it's not perfect. And I don't think you're getting the gist of you get the gist of it, but you're not getting their specifics. But then they go on to say, well, you're pulling a bike and it's on concrete. And then I can understand they don't understand because dry land mushing is similar to what I'm doing, where the dry land mushing, they're using wheeled rigs because there's no snow. There's nothing for it to slide on. So whether it's a dog cart or whether it's more like a sulky that you would have shafts coming off of, mine's a combination of all that, basically what I've designed purposely. And people will dry land mush to just keep their dogs in shape when there's not snow, or for places that never get snow, they'll do it more. They'll have to that would be the only form of dog sledding they can do. So that's understandable, but it's so interesting to get some of these comments, especially from out of the country or out of the English speaking realm, and the genuine concern for the dogs, which I love, but how it's so misappropriated, if that's the right word, because it's just totally off base. And it goes to show you today, people do that here too. I mean, they'll tell me off in English, think I'm the worst guy in the world for what I'm doing, but it's a picture or video says 1,000 or 1,000,000 words, maybe in a video's case, and they think they know what they're looking at when it's totally the opposite. Like, you wouldn't know I had a motor on the bike. You would think the dogs have to pull me. But what I don't understand personally is when they look at some of the videos, you can see the dogs, me trying to control the dogs. I mean, they're just so ecstatic about what they're doing. And they're like, and the dog's the happiest you could ever see a dog. And people are like, why do you make the dog do that? And I don't know, but why, if you've ever tried to get a husky to do something it doesn't want to do, especially a husky, most dogs, good luck with that. So that's where training comes in. But if they don't want to be doing that, I've had a dog, quick story here. Actually, Jag, who is the dog in the back of the electric ATV on wheels there, he was the, I guess you could call him, he was a couch potato. I've got one now, Lola. But Jag was maybe the smartest in the sense that whenever he would run with the bike, he would never pull. His line would never be what they call line out. He would never be out in front, but he would never be too far behind. He always had slack in his line. And my WoofDriver pit crew all through the years who knew Jag, all the guys would, and even the girls would say, Jag is just so smart. He's not going to overdo it, but he's not going to underdo it. He's just going to let all the other dogs, what he thinks, do the work. And he's just going to sit back like a fat cat and relax and do what he wants to do. So one time, or more than one time, probably a handful of times, for some reason, I mean, Jag was probably 9 years old at the time. He just decided, I don't want to do it. I don't want to run with the bike. And a lot of people say this to me. Well, what do you do if you get a tired dog or a dog that doesn't want to do it? Because they're few and far between, but there are some dogs that just don't want to do it for some reason. Sometimes it's just not proper training. The dogs were with other dogs that were too fast for them, and they didn't want to go that fast, and they just get frustrated, for lack of a better description there. In any case, Jag was like, I don't want to do it. I think in some ways Jag did have a aversion to the wheels. Sometimes he'd run next to him. Some days he didn't want to. So Jag would just stopped and said, I'm not going. And that's what's so wonderful with, again, Dog Motorsports, because I have all kinds of ways to satisfy Jag, to answer it's all about the dogs, to do what he wanted to do. So I put Jag up in a seat that I had on the bike reserved for dogs that maybe would be, God forbid, injured, like I talked about, or tired, or for whatever the case may be, I had to rest the dog, which was used few and far between until I started getting dogs in their senior years. I mean, 15 years old, I would take Princess, another generation, another story. And I call that her throne, her seat. She would watch all the other dogs, but she'd want to get down and run for a mile and then get back in her seat, etc. So I put Jag in that seat, and Jag didn't want to be there either. So I'm like, Jag, what do you want to do? So the way I train dogs, earlier someone said the Husky Whisperer, and that's why I got this name, because I can train Huskies off leash. So at the time, Jag, what all my dogs there, they listened like it was like I could whisper it and they responded to me. So I said, you know what? We were in a fairly remote area, and I don't like to do this because I'm considerate. And if you're not supposed to have your dogs off leash, I follow that to the nth degree. But I had people up ahead on the trail telling me there's nobody there, people behind me, nobody behind me. So I put Jag off the leash, and Jag just ran right with the bike. He was running to his heart's content, and he'd get in front of us. And I could control his position. I'd say, Jag, no, Jag, this, whatever. He listened to my commands, and he knew the sled dog commands. Haul, meaning to the left, G, meaning to the right, whoa, stop, easy, slow down. All those commands he was very familiar with. And Jag would do that. Once in a while, he'd sprint in front of us, and he'd look back, and his tongue be hanging out of his mouth, and he'd be like, aha, you suckers are on there. I'm doing it myself. I don't need to be tethered to the sled. So it was kind of funny. I mean, that's the way Jag was. He was a prankster. That's what I called him. So we did that. I think I did that on 3 or 4 trails. I had to make special provisions to make sure there weren't people on the trail. So I was following all the rules and regulations to the best I could. And Jag would actually do that. And I figured that's just what Jag wants to do. Eventually, I was able to get him to be more cooperative in the seat. And finally, he said, you know what? I don't mind. I'm back on the bike. And that was like, I don't know, maybe he went through a midlife crisis again. After about a half a dozen of those adventures with him off the bike, running along next to it, running in front, I was able to just put him back to the bike, and he went back on it. But he was the dog that when he was off leash, I what I call free ranging them. When I'd run them on an ATV, I rent some farms and I run them off leash. Jag be running, and when he get near the wheel, he'd go like that. And you would think that, I think he got sprayed one time, because we go through some rugged areas even on the farm. I think he got sprayed with water and or mud, and he didn't like that ever since. So he'd be very cautious when he was around it. He was too smart for his own good. Aren't a lot of Huskies like that? So that's the Jag story. I'm going to check. Do we have any other questions or any concerns or comments? I can't. That won't translate it for me, Rafi. But thank you for your comment. And it looks like nothing new. I appreciate everybody comments, concerns, etc. And I encourage you to check out dogdocumentary.com, because there's so many stories, and I'm just rattling them off here to share them, because people we love our dogs so much because they all have their individual own personalities. And so many people get this, and they'll say, well, my dog does this, why? And sometimes it's just an anomaly why your dog does that. But there's so many ways to work through their predicament, just like I was explaining about Jag. And just like I'm pioneered this whole dog motorsports concept. A lot of people out there, they'll say, my dog won't, my husky especially, my husky, eats some one day and won't eat enough the next day. They're picky eaters for sure, some of them. But a lot of times it's because they're just not expelling enough out their body. They're not getting enough opportunity to stimulate themselves to go to the bathroom and empty it. So they don't make room for new food. That's what I find. And so that'll happen sometimes, especially as they age, they get older. I'm hoping to do it the next couple of days. I'm going to show my dogs again. Feeding time is like a frenzy at my house. If somebody walked in and heard it, they probably call the police and say, he's doing something. There's children down in that basement. He's doing something. That's where I feed them. He's doing something to those dogs. Well, it's just the Huskies are so vocal and so excited because they love their mealtime. I do feed once a day. Works best for me. Always say consult your veterinarian, see what works for you. And we'll do a podcast all about feeding them at some point, hopefully. But it works for me, and it keeps this level of enthusiasm. I've had a couple picky eaters along the way. Sometimes it's health related, so if a dog's not eating, you first got to figure out why. If it starts being a common occurrence, it might be more habitual because of what they're doing, not getting enough exercise, feeding too much so they can binge one day. And Huskies will do that. They'll binge one day and then they won't eat for a day. Then they'll eat a little bit the next day. Then they'll binge the next day. It's pretty interesting the way they do it. In fact, I used to fast one of my generations of Huskies once a week, once every couple weeks or so. And I'm working them so much now that fasting's not in the option, but it was always a good idea at the time, I thought, and it worked well for me to let their digestive system, because in the wild that can happen. They are domesticated, but their ancestors, and when they were wild, it would happen. They wouldn't eat one day, they'd binge the next day. So that's some of that behavior. You see that through them. But always, and some people will free feed, and there's other ways of feeding dogs. I never had any luck with that. So we'll get into that on another podcast. But what you're seeing behind me, it's beautiful. This is just the perfect amount of snow for the electric vehicles that I have, especially the two, like you see here, the ATV, stand-up ATVs, and the Swin car, which is I also refer to as the dog dune buggy, because it can make it through sometimes up to 6 inches or so, depending on the consistency of the snow. And it's truly incredible. So we mount cameras to the bikes, to the trucks, to again, that's why I'm wearing the hat. To almost everywhere we can, because I love to capture this from as many perspectives as possible, because not only for my memory and not only to share it here on social media, but also I like to see how the dogs are interacting with the equipment, how my lines are adjusted, how they're tethered to it, and their physical shape, capacity, etc. Because of course they're all getting older. We're always getting older, and they can change. So you have to be on the lookout. They might not want to engage as much, just like the story about Jag. They might not want to climb as much, whatever the case may be. So it's really interesting to see. They almost always like the snow better than and then any other surface we can go on. Just it's cold, and it's talking Huskies, of course, sled dogs. So that's their nature, that's their instinct. But you have to be careful on that too, using booties at appropriate times, because the snow, they call it a snowballing effect, where the snow actually goes between their toes on their paws, and it starts building up like a snowball. And I mean, their whole paw can become a club essentially. And of course, they can't run on it like that. They can injure themselves, and it can give them frostbite. It can be a bad thing. So that's why almost all the times you'll see people doing distances with sled dogs, they're going to use booties. And sometimes that depends on the dog. Usually if there's hair between their toes, that's when that's more likely to happen, and the consistency of the snow. You can shave. I used to shave some of the hair between it. That can help that from happening, because I'm not doing the distances. Sometimes it doesn't matter. It's just the consistency of the snow and the dog. So some dogs will always need booties. Some dogs, you may not need it. When you get into distances, you're going to need them for snow. But also Musher Secret. You can put Musher Secret. That's a wax. There's probably other brands out there that are non-toxic to the dogs. You can put it between their pads, on the bottom of their pads, between their toes, and that'll help keep that snowballing effect from happening. But you got to keep reapplying it. And so there's all kinds of ways. But for what we're doing here, we didn't need any booties because I always carry them with me, and I always carry the Musher Secret with me. And I will always, on stops, I'll check the dogs. The biggest tell is how they're run. No pun intended there. How they're running. That usually tells how their physical condition is. Paws being affected, joints being affected, maybe turn wrong and hurt themselves, whatever the case may be. Usually not an issue. The biggest issue is going to be with their pads and their paws that you really need to keep an eye on. That's how we do it here in Wolf Driver Land. They're going to do one more check before we go off, before we call it a day. And it doesn't look like Karen, great to see you, Karen. I really appreciate all your input and all your comments. And thank you. She said so much quality information. I really appreciate that. I know Karen's been a long time Wolf Driver fan out there, and I really, really appreciate that. Sometimes, just to let people know that Facebook, I try to post once a day, twice a day, sometimes 3 times a day. There are times where I don't post, but a lot of people, and it's all these algorithms in social media that prevent people that even follow me sometimes from seeing all the posts. So I try to figure out the algorithm or the flavor of the week, what gets people to view, because I want to share as much information as I can. I really enjoy everybody's comments and everything they say. So really appreciate that, Karen. It's funny because sometimes I'll get some viral videos, some viral posts here and there. And it's so funny because it's not the video you think went viral. Sometimes it's, or even a photo. And sometimes it's something totally different. And sometimes it goes viral. I'm not going to say for the wrong reasons, but it's funny because one of my latest viral posts is when we stopped to talk to a gentleman that was rollerblading, and I was on the Dismal Swamp Canal Trail in Chesapeake, Virginia, near Virginia Beach. And the gentleman was just genuinely curious of what I was doing. And people were like, well, you talk too much. You do this. He didn't want to be trapped by our talk. I mean, this got so off target of everything. And I was being personally attacked. And to me, it was kind of funny because I don't care what anyone says. I, know what I do and believe in everything I do and love everything I do. So it's not going to affect me what anyone says. The biggest thing is I don't want people to take the wrong thing out of it. I don't care, what they think about me again personally, but I want people to understand that what I'm doing is thinking outside of the box, trying to give others ideas to better have huskies in their lives, high energy breeds, all dogs, etc. It's for the betterment of all dogs. That's the way I like to put it. But some of these comments are just so outlandish, and you wouldn't think it. And again, that's why I address them and like reading them, because sometimes someone will bring up a valid point that I didn't think of, and that makes me better. So and it gets me to further explain it to help others. So interesting point. Thank you so much again. I really appreciate everybody tuning in. And we had a little technical difficulties our first round. So if you're viewing this, I know you might see it on Facebook or wherever you're tuning in. I'll try to delete it. Some places let you delete the live video, some don't. Some social media outlets, whatever. So if you see it, it looks the same. But it's this one's the full length video where we've been on here roughly 50 minutes. And we hope to be back weekly. Dogdocumentary.com dives into a lot of this stuff. A lot of behind the scenes you'll see. It is a major production. I mean, I had cameras following me for, I don't know, close to 3 years, I guess. And a lot of the other video in there is actual footage like you're seeing behind me from our cameras out in the field, because we didn't have professional cameras following me back then. But really interesting stuff. This film here, this video, it was so incredible because you can see the sun shining down on us, and I get warm and fuzzy when I see my other generations of dogs just having a great time, and it's like surreal, the whole setting and the whole everything about it. And I just can't get enough of it. And I want people to get the excitement about that and understand that you can adventure with your dog in a similar capacity where you don't need everything I've got going on, just the basics. And these electric vehicles are really key in doing this. And that's why, again, I call it dog moto sports, because that's what makes it happen. Again, as I'm getting older, less capable, and just not as nimble as I used to be. When I was younger, I had my first two dogs, again, Czar, CZAR, and Hudson. And I would do all this myself, and I would unload the truck. And I mean, when you're young, you got a lot more to be had. And I did it all. So I learned that way. And then as I got older, by the way, back then I was still using electric vehicles, but I was mixing it with some dog powered sports, with some joring sports, mostly with the Seiko cart, they call it, which was not motorized. Even today, the Seiko cart is not motorized. One of the best ways to run dogs out there. It's just so expensive that it's hard for others to afford it. It's hard for everyone to afford it right now. When I became the North American distributor, I love this thing so much. After I got involved, just because I wanted to spread the Seiko cart, because I thought it was the coolest thing in the world. How the dogs could pull you on it. It was well designed. Steering was good. My invention here, not what you're watching, but my electric dog sled on wheels, I think is one step up from the Seiko, because it has electric and because it has a way to run 4 dogs easier. I've run 4 dogs on the Seiko cart. It's a little more cumbersome. But that's a joring sport, again, without a motor. So I did many of that. So I understood the dog's pulling capacities and what was happening with it. I've run a big sled dog team just once, just as a musher, I was helping the musher, for lack of a better description. I was more of an onlooker, but because of my knowledge, he let me run the team a little bit, and that was a fun experience too. But and I've run dogs on sleds before, just my dogs though. But it's not something I wouldn't want to be a professional musher or live a full mushing lifestyle, because it's just too much. I don't think I could do it, actually. And I just want to have my dogs, my best friends, be able to venture with them wherever I want to go, and not live that full musher lifestyle. But that's why I share this, because you don't need to be a full-time musher to have these breeds, especially like 4 dogs. It works out perfectly. So I'm Wolf Driver. We're 52 minutes into this broadcast. I'd like to thank everybody again. If there's any other, I could do one final check. If you've got anything for me, I'm producer. I'm going to tell Rod. Doesn't seem like there's anything new. Redneck Thor 2.0. Hello. Hey, thanks again. I love giving shout outs. Just love spreading the word. And please don't forget dogdocumentary.com. That's going to be a big hit. We've entered in a bunch of film festivals, and we're making a lot of noise, as my producer Rod would say. So it's really an interesting look at what I do with interaction from others. It's about dogs. So it's a lot of fun, educational, interesting, and entertaining. Think you'd enjoy it. Now, you can't find it anywhere yet. It's just in these film festivals. We're gonna do a premiere in Towson, Maryland, at the Cinemark Theater, I believe in 2 weeks, November 16th at 7 p.m. If you'd like tickets, there are still tickets available. You won't have to buy them. I'll give them to you if you're in the area. We're going to do a Q&A afterwards. So if you can't make it, if you're somewhere else, whatever, we will have, we're going to film that all, at least the Q&A and a little bit from the film. But you'll hopefully be able to see the film on hopefully major streaming platforms in the near future. I'm Wolf Driver. We're shooting for this time every Tuesday at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. That could fluctuate. I'll try to keep everyone posted on social media. Thanks so much again. Have a great day. Look forward to seeing you on our next podcast. Please check out all my social media. And again, follow me. That might help you on like Facebook. You might subscribe to me, but if you follow me and other ways of staying in touch, it might help you see more of my posts.